The ultimate outcome of neoliberalism and alienation is the collapse of our psychic health.
George Monbiot is a zoologist and anthropologist. He has worked as an environmental activist in Brazil, New Guinea and Africa.
Well, we're here to talk about how we got into this mess.
He has written books about the collapse of traditional societies, about the loss of social coherence and the natural environment. In his columns in The Guardian and during lectures and demonstrations, he denounces the elite in power.
If you are staring at the wall and failing to see the cracks in it, that's because you're not looking at it right.
Should we be attacking people just for having expensive possessions?
No, just
I'm not
producing
certain.
a massive carbon footprint way above what most people produce. Shouldn't we be doing that?
In the United Kingdom, he started a movement claiming the right to walk anywhere. Monbiot despises no trespassing signs. Now George Monbiot is calling on us to look for a much-needed new narrative.
We are creatures of narrative. We interpret the world through narrative. And if someone tells us a compelling story, we latch onto it. We're constantly listening for a story. And what we desperately need to do is to tell a new story, which I call the politics of belonging.
But how would this new story go? First, we must attempt to rediscover ourselves as human beings, and perhaps even to find ourselves once again.
We can increase brain functions usually linked to positive emotions and feelings of kindness towards others. So this is amazing news. There is this core of good-heartedness and of warm-heartedness, and I only have to get there.
In this story, we need to learn how to build a different society. Not one based on competition and the love of winning, but on our sense of community and our social abilities.
Ho imparato a dire che soprattutto le società più avanzate che hanno come obiettivo quello di tutelare i loro privilegi. Non stanno lì a perdere tempo con altri esseri umani.
This is Backlight. Welcome to the empathetic universe.
The essential task in many ways is to break out of a culture that is driving us towards ruin. And
in his books and columns, Monbiot holds up to us an unforgiving mirror. 30 years of neoliberalism has not only dislocated our society, but also our psychological situation. It's high time that we find ourselves, our connection with those near to us in society, and that we find democracy once more. All reasons to go and talk with Monbiot. We find him in his orchard, because he needs to prune his trees before it's too late.
first step is always to make sure that your tools are sharp.
So what needs to be done today?
So I'm going to prune a couple of trees. We've got a little bit of time left in pruning season. So suddenly young people get into gardening. A lot of young people became involved.
And why is that, you think?
I think the reason was they wanted connection with something. I've seen what happens around the world to indigenous people when they lose their land. They lose their minds. They succumb to alienation, to anomie, to alcoholism, to drug addiction. And I think we've all been through this. It was very interesting. After I'd been working abroad for several years in Brazil, in West Papua, in East Africa, I came back to this country and I started reading the poems of John Clare. He's a great English poet. He was a peasant, self-educated man. And in his early adulthood, he described with tremendous beauty the wildlife and the countryside, but also the rural traditions of his community, the cycle through the year of the different activities they did at different times, both to make a living, but also the ceremonial activities. His poems are a thing of intense beauty. And then, in mid-adulthood, the enclosers turned up, the private landlords stealing the land from the people. And his poems then, poems such as The Fallen Elm and The Moors and The Ballad of Swordy Well, they describe that process of the fences going up, of the people being cleared off, of the land itself being cleared, all the trees, the beautiful places being destroyed and levelled, and these no trespassing signs being put up. They're devastating poems where he sees everything he loves being destroyed. What happens to him then? He becomes an alcoholic. He loses his mind, he dies in a lunatic asylum. And after reading those, it took me quite a while for me to realise this. I suddenly realised we are all John Clare. We've all been through that same process. We've lost our land, we've lost our communities, we've lost our collectivity, we've lost our ceremonial lives in the same way as the indigenous people who I saw in those different parts of the world, and with the same consequences. And we wonder why we have so many problems today. Mental health problems, alcoholism, drug addiction. We are those people.
But this loss of connection, why did we let that happen?
I think we have stumbled into a whole series of social and environmental crises, none of which we requested, none of which, in no case were these places we intended to go, but we just found ourselves being drawn step by step into a situation which for many people is intolerable. What we sowed here was the roots of the extreme individualism, or rather atomization, the separation from each other, which then makes it very hard to sustain a sense of empowered belonging to yourself or to the community that surrounds you. It's just a sort of collapse of common purpose, and as a result, a collapse of our own sense of self-worth. A couple of decades ago, the fundamental values were things like belonging, friendship, community life, family life. Just in the past few years, those have fundamentally changed. And it's all about fame, about celebrity, about acquiring material benefits yourself. So it seems to me that one of the many, but also the ultimate outcome of neoliberalism and alienation is the collapse of our psychic health.
George Monbiot finds a connection between the hyper-individualism of our time and the mental health of our society. To understand this better, we visit leading neurologist Olga Klimecki, who specialises in social neurology. She studies the relationship between emotions and brain function, so she should know whether we can tell how we are doing by reading our brains.
I would like to ask, how are we doing?
How are we doing?
Yeah.
In general, as a society, or?
Well, in the brain. Because I'm trying to find out whether, and in what way, we can say that today's brain has altered or changed, even without us being aware of it.
My personal feeling is that some things did change. So I think people have a shorter attention span. This is what I tend to notice, and not through neuroimaging measures, but through the quickness with which you get replies to emails, or you get interruptions during your day, and people are very used to them. And I think at least, like I would say 10, 15 years ago, this was not so much the case. You'd rather be able to work on something for a longer time span, and maybe this is something that has changed.
So if some things change, or what does it what does it leave certain substances in the brain? What are there traces?
Probably it does impact the way we interact with each other, because stress does impact. So if people have been stressed a lot, it basically shuts down their prefrontal cortex functions, and the more emotional or more hardwired responses that are behaviorally learned in so many times, they just emerge. So this is an example of how our brain architecture can then impact our behavioral and emotional reactions to others. We can look at activations in the brain, affective functions, so how emotions are being represented in the brain. And even more recently, there was some interest in social interaction. So how do we, for instance, react to someone from another race? Or, for instance, how do we relate to the pain of other people? We can increase brain functions usually linked to positive emotions and feelings of kindness towards others. So this is amazing news. But for me, it also means that probably whatever we do during our everyday life will change our brain. It's good news, but it also means we have to responsibly choose our activities in knowing that they may determine who we are, who we will become in the future.
If we can renew or rediscover ourselves, we can go in search of a new story linking ourselves with our society. According to George Monbiot, this is essential, because these stories are what make us who we are.
Something that struck me very forcibly over the past few years is the realization, first, that politics is basically run by stories, that narratives are what makes the change in the world. But secondly, that the story is always the same. It's a story with the same narrative structure, and it's a story I call the restoration story, which has been successful in politics and in religion for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it goes like this: disorder afflicts the land, caused by powerful and nefarious forces working against the good of humanity. But the hero of the story, who might be one person, might be a group of people, might even be an institution, confronts those powerful and nefarious forces and against all odds overcomes them and restores order to the land. It's the Lord of the Rings story, it's the Narnia story, it's the Christian story, it's just about every story in politics or religion that you ever hear. And basically, if you're going to succeed in creating a new political movement, it needs a restoration story. That's what works, because we're not just creatures of narrative, but we are primed to hear particular narratives. And the narrative that neoliberals like Mrs. Thatcher were telling us was that we would be freed, liberated, and encounter a world of opportunity and individualism by rolling back collective action and replacing it with the free market and the entrepreneurs, establishing the opportunity for everybody to become rich and to separate themselves from society and enhance their lives in so doing. And the mistake the left made was it produced no counter-narrative of its own. It just said, oh, that's wrong. And here are the following facts and figures which show that it's wrong. Facts and figures have no power against a narrative. The only thing that can replace a story is a story. We are creatures of narrative. We interpret the world through narrative. And if someone tells us a compelling story, we latch onto it. We're constantly listening for a story. And what we desperately need to do is to tell a new story. So my new story is this: it's disorder afflicts the land, caused by the powerful and nefarious forces of the billionaires and their tame politicians and journalists and think tanks who have told us that we're bad people and we ought to be bad people, separated, selfish, greedy, alienated from each other and proud of it. But we, the heroes of the story, will confront those powerful and nefarious forces by rebuilding community, by establishing a politics of belonging which says that everybody has a role, everybody has a place, and from that place and the communities we build around that place, we will rebuild genuine political power. And in doing so, we will restore order to the land.
According to George Monbiot, we can create a new story, our story. A story in which we ourselves are the heroes. We went looking for an opening line for this story and found it in a mountain village in southern Italy.
Il colore quello là, quello lo facciamo già preparato.
Il muro fuori? Sì, facciamo,
fuori.
sì, facciamo quello che...
Come questo che abbiamo fatto.
Sì. Moi, je viens du Sénégal. Et je viens ici en 2014. En fin 2014, oui.
Ok. Vous êtes ici tous ensemble? Vous êtes combien ici?
Nous...
Des réfugiés.
Mais... Normalement, totalement... Je ne sais pas c'est combien, mais... Je pense que c'est quelque... 80 quelque.
Oui. Parce que c'est un tout petit village, vraiment.
Oui. Ah. C'est un village.
Quindi voi, cioè queste case erano abbandonate e voi avete...
No, non abbandonate, erano chiuse più che abbandonate perché i nostri emigranti che nel corso degli anni sono andati... Ci sono tante fasi dell'emigrazione. Dopo la seconda guerra mondiale i nostri emigranti sono andati nelle Americhe, oltreoceano. Poi quando c'è stato il boom economico in Italia, ha aperto l'industria dell'automobile, c'è stata un'emigrazione interna all'Italia, verso il nord Italia. E questo ha portato che la Riace altrove è quella più numerosa nel mondo. Un popolo in viaggio è arrivato e vuole queste case. Ma l'impellenza di risolvere questo problema della loro abitazione mi ha portato istintivamente a chiamare, ho pensato, ma Riace è un paese di case senza gente. E allora ho pensato, probabilmente le case dei nostri emigranti che da tanti anni sono chiuse possono fare per l'occasione, possono essere riutilizzate. E abbiamo cominciato a fare una ricerca di numeri di telefono, di dire ma quella casa laggiù, ma quella casa da tanti anni, abbiamo costruito il centro di accoglienza. Ecco, nasce in quel momento questa dimensione di questo Riace paese dell'accoglienza. E avevo capito che questa poteva essere un'idea di riscatto di questa terra che forse non ha altro da poter dare, come qualcosa da dare agli altri. Con la consapevolezza che addirittura possono essere la soluzione dei nostri problemi. Cambia una terra delle partenze, anche comincia ad essere una terra degli arrivi. E questo fa in qualche modo, crea una curiosità nella popolazione locale, non abituata. Però ho pensato, non crea ostilità perché era in un momento in cui c'era una forte rassegnazione sociale e la gente aveva perso anche quel senso così di sperare in un futuro possibile. Dicono tanto ormai tutte nelle famiglie, tanto ormai questo ripetersi di queste due parole, ce ne dobbiamo andare. Tutto legato a questo momento della partenza che prima o poi arriva per tutti. E così abbiamo costruito giorno dopo giorno questo.
It's actually our social engagement which, to a very large extent, determines our psychic state and determines our role in the world and our sense of meaning and purpose. And the brain, constantly interpreting these social signals, ends up having a very powerful impact on the way in which our bodies respond. There are these chemical messengers called cytokines, which are an essential part of the immune system. and they cause inflammation. And inflammation is a response to wounding or to infection. It allows the immune system to kick in and to engage with those assaults on the body. But cytokines also change our behavior. It's very interesting. So if we get ill, they create the inflammation response, but they also have this impact on the brain, which basically tells us withdraw from society as a whole. Interestingly, it also works the other way around. That when you are socially isolated, you get an inflammation response. So the brain is picking up these cues and saying, "Oh, wait a minute, you're in a dangerous situation here. You don't have strong connections with a community. You don't have much social protection. You're more prone to wounding or to illness of some kind. Therefore, we're going to give you an inflammation response so that you're ready to defend yourself against wounding or illness." And that in turn can then make you feel more ill, and then you withdraw further, and you get into a vicious cycle.
To improve the world around us, we must first improve ourselves. And this is possible. From research into the brain and Olga Klimecki's experiment on specific areas of the brain, it appears to be possible to train our brains in such a way that negative emotions and the tendency to shut ourselves off from the outside world will no longer guide us.
In my research, I work a lot on brain plasticity, so in how far we can change the way in which we react to a certain stimulus through training. So when we talk about brain plasticity and emotional plasticity, we talk about the capacity of the brain to change in adult life for me. I mean, there's a brain plasticity that happens during development naturally, right? So we know that the child's brain evolves and so on. But I actually provided the first evidence that even as adults, when we learn some emotional skills, our brain functions change, which is quite amazing if you think of it. That, for instance, my trainings, they were quite short, they were just a week. That if you do a certain method for a week, you train it, your brain reaction to the same kind of stimuli changes in a quite consistent manner. So you can influence how your body reacts to a certain kind of stimulus, which I think gives us a lot of hope for, changing in an adaptive way and maybe reducing the stress we have and increasing the resources we have, etc.
It might mean we could become better human beings.
Yeah, we could become better human beings, or even the other way around, right? I mean, if we can change in one direction, we could also change in another direction. In this study, what I was interested in is to see whether our relation to suffering can change. So how we relate to the suffering of others is an important question, because this is something we're faced with on a regular basis. Participants in my study, they looked at videos of people suffering or of people in everyday situations. And the videos of the suffering were videos that you would usually see on television in the evening news. And so people saw these films before a training and after the training, while their brain activation was measured. And so what we found in the brain is that the group that was trained in compassion showed higher activations in regions usually related to warm-heartedness and tenderness, and that are usually activated when you, for instance, see your smiling baby or when you see your romantic partner, even when they were confronted with suffering. And you resonate with the negative feeling of the other person, but instead of shutting down these emotions, you actually extend positive emotions towards this other person. You accept the negative feelings, but in addition, you extend positive emotions towards the other person.
Yeah, so what happens is your brain tells you to become another person, a different person.
Not sure whether your brain tells you to do that because you sort of engage in the training yourself, or you tell your brain to become another brain. Yeah. It's hard to know which way around this works, but it's aligned, right? So the change in the brain is aligned with the change in how participants report their feelings subjectively, right? And we also saw in another study that this kind of training increases altruistic behavior.
Noi camminesi siamo 280, non siamo molti. Abbiamo la proporzione di un rifugiato per ogni camminese. Iniziamo con 15, con 25 ragazzi, pian piano fino ad oggi che siamo arrivati a 118 persone. La nostra idea è di integrazione. Avanti.
Buongiorno.
Sorry. Come andiamo? Tutto a posto? Hai bisogno del bonus?
Sì.
Quanto?
Del 50.
Ma per gli altri poi vieni più tardi, perché non lo so se hanno preparato le ricevute. Ah? Abbiamo pensato che con l'accoglienza poteva rinascere questo paese. Ogni rifugiato che abbiamo qua con noi, che sono per lo più delle famiglie, hanno un'abitazione autonoma, che si autogestiscono.
Sono soldi strani questi.
Sì, sono tipo un ticket, però che risultano come un ticket che abbiamo messo noi delle immagini, un valore, abbiamo delle convenzioni con gli esercenti commerciali e loro quando riconoscono questo ticket che viene rilasciato da parte nostra, 500 sono. Sì, conti, vedi? E poi per il pocket money ti faccio il bonifico, va bene? Oggi te lo faccio, va bene? Oggi domani? Ok, Tore. Ciao Tore, saluto Tore. Ciao Tore.
Adesso arrivo Sina.
E chi li ha fatti questi soldi?
Li abbiamo praticamente stampati qua in una tipografia.
E chi se li ha inventati questi soldi?
No, questo è un metodo che abbiamo preso da Riace, perché Riace è il primo a lanciare questa idea di questi ticket, sì.
Allora, te li spiego. Allora, abbiamo utilizzato questo per raccontare la storia anche... Questo si chiama Ernesto Che Guevara, si chiamava. E una lettera che ha scritto ai figli quando dice che bisogna essere capaci di sentire l'ingiustizia contro qualsiasi essere umano in qualunque parte del mondo, sentirla sulla propria pelle. Lui dice così, Ernesto Che Guevara. Questo è Charlie Chaplin. Questo invece è una storia locale di un mugnaio, si chiamava Rocco Gatto. In un giorno di lutto cittadino, perché era morto uno di una famiglia di mafia, lui aveva un mulino, tutti hanno chiuso le attività, hanno chiuso le saracinesche dei negozi, lui ha lasciato aperto. Dice: io non riconosco l'autorità di uno che ha portato la morte. Dopo 20 giorni lo ammazzano. Si chiamava Rocco Gatto. E di un comune vicino qua a noi. Questo è Martin Luther King. Anche Bob Marley. Questo è un cantante giamaicano. C'era anche Nelson Mandela. Non lo trovo. Sai Nelson Mandela che per l'apartheid ha detto 3 parole. Non abbiamo bisogno della vostra pietà, ma solo giustizia.
Sì, ok, tu la cornice qua, pulita per bene e io faccio lo stesso. Prima di venire qui a lavorare qui ero a Francoforte, in Germania, perché qui c'è poco, c'è stata la crisi e quindi ho dovuto per forza emigrare. Poi ho saputo che per me c'era lavoro qui e mi sono trasferito. I miei figli sono contenti, mia moglie è anche contenta e quindi viviamo qui tiriamo avanti.
Da dove viene la gente con cui lavori?
Con chi lavora, da dove viene? Dalla Siria, lui, tu sei siriano?
Sì.
Lui è siriano e collaboriamo insieme. Lui fa le finestre, fa anche le porte e quindi lui se la sente, lui è una persona che già sa fare qualcosa.
Mi spieghi infatti qual è il motivo perché adesso c'è lavoro a Cammino?
Ma perché è cresciuta questa cooperativa, è nata questa cooperativa che prima non c'era. E quindi adesso si ristrutturano le case, si fa tutto e c'è bisogno di un artigiano. Quindi io mi sa che in questo ambito mi sento, come dire, partecipe e utile. Grazie a loro io sono qui, sì, grazie a loro. Perché se no a quest'ora mi trovavo chissà dove, nell'altra parte del mondo. Da quale Siria? Siria dove? City?
Damas.
Da Damas, sì, Siria. Sì. Lì c'è guerra? C'è guerra?
Sì.
Bon, guerra?
Okay.
Ah, c'è guerra, sì. Tu come sei arrivato qui? In Italia? Nave? Nave o aereo? Nave? Sì, dalla Siria in Italia? Beirut? Ah, ma con l'aereo?
Sì.
O con la nave? Con la nave.
No,
Nave?
Sì, Perù.
Perù. Ah, dal Perù?
Damas, Beirut.
Ah, Damas, Beirut. Damas,
Beirut.
Italia. Damas, Beirut, Italia. Ha fatto un lungo tragitto, sì.
So where's this from?
So they are from Riace.
These are brilliant. These are fantastic.
It has something to do with mountains, which is really strange.
Well, I don't think it's so strange that it has something to do with mountains. You see, the cities were always founded on the plains. Generally, at the bottom of the river catchment, that's where the cities were, because they needed the water for trade, for irrigation, for the ecological richness that they gave them on which the city was built. And the city was built on slavery. As soon as you had a city and the hierarchical structure which the city implied, basically everyone in its hinterland was more or less enslaved by that city. They had no freedom, they were kept in by the army. If they tried to escape, they were rounded up. And it's only in the mountains that people remained free. And there's a tradition of freedom in the mountainous areas which weren't of any interest to the city because there wasn't the wealth that could be extracted. You couldn't very successfully wage military campaigns in the mountains. And I think that in the cities we have a mental legacy, a psychological legacy of slavery. We're still afraid. We still have that fear, and we conform. We keep our heads down. We don't cause too much trouble. Whereas the mountain people, they have a long legacy of independence, and perhaps that's why we see some political innovation taking place in mountainous areas.
E ho imparato a dire che soprattutto le società più avanzate che hanno come obiettivo quello di tutelare i loro privilegi, non stanno lì a perdere tempo con altri esseri umani. Poi quando vengono queste feste come Natale, quando diventano tutti, questa è una ipocrisia, una retorica, un atteggiamento ipocrita e di non rispetto della dignità degli esseri umani.
È disseminato di pietre, quindi c'erano tante pietre.
Non pensava.
Non devono dire le aiutiamo, questa è una ipocrisia, una offesa alla dignità umana quando dicono li aiutiamo a casa loro, tanto l'importante non vengono.
Nascondendo alla vista.
Addirittura adesso siamo in grado anche di fare accordi accordi con i mercenari degli esseri umani, con i mercanti veramente degli esseri umani, per evitare che arrivano in Italia, che è uno dei paesi da cui si accede verso l'Europa. Poi se queste persone perdono la vita o vengono torturate, a noi l'importante è che i nostri occhi non vedono. Guarda che questa è un giorno, questa storia l'umanità dovrà scriverla, e chi ha responsabilità non lo so se pagherà per questo. Ecco, questa è la storia.
When we are under great pressure and our brains transmit warning signals resulting in our withdrawal from society, it is important that we alter these signals and convert them into positive impulses. This is the subject of Olga Klimecki's research. She shows us the route that is open to us, the road leading to feeling, to compassion.
This kind of experiment, or these kind of experiments, made me think of our society. So of societies or, groups of individuals who have been through many wars and over many generations, as opposed to societies who have been living in a very peaceful environment for many generations. Because these are epigenetic changes, right? So for instance, in a country like Switzerland, where there haven't been much wars in the recent few hundred years, people probably have a very different motivational brain system, and their brain is much less prone to stress and to other vulnerabilities than in a country that has been through wars repeatedly and all of the time for many generations. So this, for me, this is a very crucial way in which society shapes the brains of its members.
If we change our brain, can we find, say, certain qualities that we have lost? Mm-hmm. And where are they?
I mean, in my studies, I have shown that by a just very brief training of a couple of days in cultivating benevolence through a meditative technique, we can increase brain functions usually linked to positive emotions. And this, for me, is a very positive outlook on the world and on society in general. It may mean a lot of work, but it means that we can change, and even as adults we can change. And where are these, good cores in the brain? We think that, at least on the functional level, they are in the orbitofrontal cortex and in the ventral striatum, if I may simplify it like this. So these are the brain structures that I see that are more active after a compassion training, even after a short compassion training. And these brain structures are usually related to more positive emotions towards others, to feelings of love, to feelings of kindness, and so on. So these seem to be the kind of brain substrates of these warm-hearted feelings. And we think you can cultivate them even in a short time span, linked with the motivation to help this person. So it's really this warm-hearted feeling oriented towards the other, accompanied by the motivation to help. This is compassion.
Quando andavo a scuola io, già lo straniero era gli abitanti del paese vicino. Già pensavo, non eravamo abituati a queste cose. Mi ricordo che se arrivava qualche bambino o che rientrava dal nord Italia o dal paese limitrofo, già per noi era uno straniero, perché i confini, quando ero bambino, pensavo che fossero solo quelli di Camini. Al di fuori dei confini del comune di Camini, tutti gli altri erano stranieri. La cosa bella è che ora pure mia figlia sta frequentando un asilo multietnico. Per lei è normale che ci siano tanti bambini, perché c'è solo la razza umana, non ci sono altre razze. Quindi è bello pensare che i bambini già da questa età si crescono con l'idea normale che non ci sono diversità.
But the mayor's story, a story of compassion, appears ultimately to be a story of risk, sacrifice, and disillusionment.
Brilliant. Liberté, égalité, fraternité. Yeah, how wonderful. God, I love it. I just love it. I wonder if they recruited the local forger to do it.
But now the mayor...
Oh, Gramsci. Fantastic.
The mayor is now indicted for fraud.
Mm-hmm. Because of this?
Yeah.
It's a serious indictment?
Mm-hmm.
La rivista americana Fortune nel 2016 lo ha inserito nella rosa dei 50 leader più influenti nel mondo tra Papa Francesco e la cancelliera Merkel, lui al 40° posto. Una fama dovuta alla sua politica dell'accoglienza dei migranti, diventata un modello, uno slogan. Domenico Lucano, sindaco di Riace, è finito indagato per abuso d'ufficio, concussione e truffa. La Guardia di Finanza ha fatto perquisizioni nella sua abitazione e negli uffici del comune.
Ma guarda, io penso così che ovviamente il messaggio politico che viene da Riace per la politica della destra è qualcosa di aggredire, che fa male proprio, perché soprattutto Riace pone una realtà dove c'è un messaggio politico, non c'è siamo buoni, facciamo l'accoglienza, così. Allora questo dà fastidio, che i motivi sono l'utilizzo dei bonus, i lungo permanenti, che dobbiamo cacciare le persone. Lo Stato stesso a me mi chiamava per dire guarda c'è questa emergenza, ci devo aiutare. E oggi me la mettono come un fatto di criticità. Poi ci sono delle cose che mi sembrano incomprensibili, che fanno, come devo dire, annullano anche con aggressività alcune volte. E allora io avevo pensato è meglio che dobbiamo finire. E i miei familiari sono andati tutti via. Io sono 5 anni che sono da solo a Riace, addirittura la mia moglie se n'è andata, sono qua da solo. E...
Cosa è successo? Posso chiedere cosa è successo?
È successo che semplicemente dopo tanti anni questo coinvolgimento, diciamo, molto forte mi ha portato ad essere, diciamo, sempre a non avere più nemmeno la presenza fisica proprio allora mano a mano se ne sono andati. Ed è così. E oggi sono rammaricato perché da un certo punto di vista, sul piano dell'amarezza personale, da un certo punto di vista, però io lo so che la vita è così. E non ci sono alternative che io ho imparato che tu costruisci questa utopia, così, questo sogno, nella misura in cui ogni giorno ti muovi, ma non arriverà mai quell'obiettivo dove tu ti immagini che chissà che cosa.
Come tenne?
Klicken Sie hier, um das empfohlene Video anzusehen. Bitte abonnieren Sie unseren Kanal, um Updates über VPRO-Doc zu erhalten.